And live. Okay. Great. So I'm going to share my second monitor. Is that coming in good?
Yep.
Okay. Great. So I'm doing Ajax requests. And then not only Ajax requests, but requesting the JSON file from that request. So great. So I just have like very, very little HTML right here. And I just have, my title and a little button. And I'm just going to be requesting some meals. Okay. So I might have done a little too much spaghetti code on this, but I'll try to just talk about the basics of Ajax. So I just created a variable for where I want to display the information. Right, this is where the request will go, and I have variable for the button. I added an event listener for that button. Okay, and so this function, this anonymous function that I passed into the event listener, is where the Ajax request starts. So this request variable is requesting the new XML HTTP request. And then what I did is I just created a little text file, and I uploaded it to my GitHub account. And so when you make an Ajax request, after you do the request, right here, you can open the file. And so since we're requesting info, we're going to use get, not post. And then the next thing you pass in is just the it can either be like the file you want, or this is just the link to the repository. And yeah, so that's what I passed in right there. And then on load, this is where, so this other anonymous function is where you want to put in the JSON.parse. So since I'm not just requesting like a text file, since I'm requesting these objects, I want to parse through the JSON objects. And so I just loaded that into a variable called data. And then I wanted to pass in just all that data gets loaded into this response text. So this is like a built-in variable for the whole Ajax request model. And so all that's going to get loaded up into my data variable. And then I have another function call for I just wanted to separate it into a different display function. So I'm passing this data into my display function, where I want to just format it a little bit better what I want. In fact, I'm gonna open up the raw text real quick. 1 second. I should have had that open, but whatever. Here. Okay. So it's very little, but this is the link that I passed in. And I just made like, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I just wanted to specify like what that will be. Well, when you make that request, like if it's for like an actual website, like if a restaurant has a website where they want to display the menu, it's kind of like my idea. You don't want to just like display this, that's sloppy. So in my display meals function, I just have this basic variable string. And then I just format it a little bit. So if we go back to here, what you'll do is click get meals, and then, oh gosh, there you go. Let me refresh. And then I just said, let me do it side by side. So my string I added for breakfast, we're going to have, and then I requested my object. So my data dot breakfast. So dot breakfast is the object reference to is JSON. And then here's the lunch one and the dinner one. And you iterate through it, obviously. And And boom, pops up right there, nice and easy. So that is the AJAX request paired with parsing through a JSON file.
Cool.
Yeah, there's any questions?
Not for me.
Me neither.
Cool.
That's great.
Hey, just a real quick one. So you could have in your text file, do you still have your text file up?
Do I? Yeah.
You could have in your text file multiple breakfasts, multiple lunches, and multiple dinners. That's what your array would come back with, right?
Yeah. So you're thinking like, you know what? I played with that, and I wasn't really. I might have wasted too much time like trying to get it to work. But you're saying like if I wanted to put this entire thing. Okay, so there's one.
Well, I just noticed
call this like
your for loop. You know, in your for loop in your code, you are iterating through, but you only have one. But it looks like you're set up so you could do multiple. Because your display function, I mean, you're running through a loop of one right now. You have one breakfast, one lunch, and one dinner.
Right.
Yeah, but I see you could do, exactly that type of a, and you know, I don't think you need to do it here, but it's a smart way to set it up because you can handle one or more coming in from your JSON file.
Yeah, I wasn't really. I think I definitely could have gone like above and beyond with that, but I wasn't sure how to handle it on my own. I think I could research that a little more, but yeah, that would definitely be way more functional.
I think it's a great way to do it. What's the very last thing? The insert adjacent HTML.
Oh, that was to format. So this before end I looked up is where I wanted to put my string. So this string, and I wanted to put where my so this meal info ID is connected to my variable where I want to alter the HTML.
Sorry, I missed that. Okay, so that's the variable for your item. Okay, I get it. So that's just a JavaScript function for that. I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it has like there's 4 of them. There's like after, before, middle, but I think that's the basic one. So yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop. I'm still screen sharing, huh? Let me. There we go.
All right, I'll go next. Mine's number 5. All right, seeing everything?
Yep.
All right. So I've got topic 5, local storage. So I've got this here. So I've just got headings and stuff and paragraph for the demo space and buttons to click them. So I'll run those. And so this is them. And so we'll go down to the API. And so I wasn't sure if it wanted me to talk about like requesting weather data from some weather website or something, or just like APIs in general, because local storage is an API. And so I'm just using the local storage API. And so clicking that just prints this, because the rest is really the local storage stuff. So here, storing and retrieving simple data with local storage. Also, there's a thing called session storage, where but that's so session storage. You can store data in the web page, but if you close out your browser session, then the data is all gone. But local storage will keep it. So here, you set an item. So the item's name is.
Wait, what do you mean local storage will keep it?
So let's see. I think page source here. Wait. Inspect, I think. So let me see here. Just pushing this one. Not sure where the local storage is, where you're able to see the local storage in here. Well,
Sorry, so maybe I just didn't. What's the difference between local storage and session storage?
So local storage, it lets you store data locally on the browser. And so session storage, if you store the data and then close it, or close your browser, then the data's gone. But if you are using local storage, so like session storage, so if I did that, then it would go away. But using local storage, it doesn't go away if you close the browser. So this is just setting an item. So the name, Professor McGonagall, that's my cat. So, and this just uses the retrieving simple data demo space paragraph and prints that. And so storing, here's storing simple data using set item, and then retrieving using get item.
So you'd be able to count like how many times a function's been called or something like that using local storage. It could keep track of that instead of having to send everything over. It's the one thing that I've had issues with JavaScript. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. Is that what this is all about?
It could probably do that. I'm not quite sure about that. It's not something I dealt with the things I did, but you could probably do that, I bet.
What was your question, Jessica? Sorry.
Well, basically, like, I mean, it doesn't have to be just counting, but basically, if you have a function and it runs through and it comes up with this value, you can send it back to the HTML. But if you want the function to remember that value for the next time it's called, I'm wondering if that's something this could be used for.
I think it can.
Because that would be helpful.
Alrighty. So here's arrays with local storage. So here, this is just something I did for when you push the button twice. So if you use, I'm sure you already know this, but if you use the document get element by ID inner HTML equals that, I'm setting it to blank, but the plus equal just adds what you're writing on there. So with other things I was doing, I had just a plus equal, and so when I pushed the button, it just printed it over and over and over again every time I pressed, but now I fixed that with this. So here, I'm making an array called nums, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you have to stringify it with JSON to store it in local storage. So set item, passing or giving it the name string nums, and passing JSON stringify nums into there. And then you parse it with JSON and assign the array to another variable, so parse nums. And so I'm parse nums, JSON parse, retrieving the stringified array. And so here I've got a for loop. So for every number in this array, it's gonna multiply that number by, it's basically times tables. So right there, so multiplying it by 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you got your times tables multiplying, it's just a 10 by 10 times tables, basically. And so, yep, so that's how arrays work. So any questions on that? You just have to stringify them and parse them with JSON.
I don't think I have any questions.
Cool.
So I already asked mine, and I found an answer to here. You're still sharing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I send you this URL, it come through? It's on the chat.
Ah. There it is.
So go down. So here's a good definition of local storage versus session storage versus cookie. So you are right. The local storage stores it with no expiration date. And the only way it gets cleared is either through JavaScript or clearing your browser cache.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, this is the maximum amongst the 3 types.
Yeah.
And then the session, like you said, as soon as you close the browser, and then a cookie stores the data that's sent back to the server.
Yeah. Alrighty. And so for last week, I just took the W3 schools thing at its word when it said associative arrays. You can't do them in JavaScript, but apparently you can. And so if you didn't do associative arrays for the JavaScript documentation, you'll have to go back to do those. And so here I've got it for this, and so it's just the same as up here. You just got to stringify it. And so I've made an associative array here of lunch numbers for students. So there's lunch number for Alec, 86505, lunch number for Jacob, 65693, lunch number for Evan, 28957, lunch number for Madison, 38291. So you stringify it. So set item, giving it the string lunch nums, and passing the value JSON stringify lunch nums into that variable. And now parsing it. So you make par lunch parsed lunch numbers and assign JSON parse and retrieving the string lunch number and passing that in. And
so I guess I have a question. I'm sorry. So we stringify it and then we parse it, but isn't that just taking it from? So maybe I guess I'm confused as to why we do one and then the other, because they seem.
You have to stringify it, so you store it as a string in local storage. Basically, you can't store the numbers or objects.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So if you notice when he's stringifying it there, it's so that he can put it in local storage. And then he parses it as he pulls it out. So he could actually do it as 2 steps. He could do local storage dot get item and put that into a string, and then he could run the parse. He's just doing both of them at once.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Thank you.
And I just made a little heading and a for loop. So for variable name in parsed lunch numbers, number equals parsed lunch numbers name, and in the demo space, printing the name plus colon plus numbers plus return. So lunch numbers Alec, Jacob, Evan, Madison. So any questions on that?
Oh.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Nice find on the associated arrays.
Yeah.
They're almost like objects. It's almost like an array.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, it was pretty simple once you got that. Alrighty. And so now, last one, objects. So with objects, you create the object. So I've created an object called my cat, given it name, Professor McGonagall, age 7, breed tabby, gender female, licensed false. And so I'm storing it in the object with stringify. So set item, Professor, JSON stringify, my cat. And now parsing it, var parsed cat equals JSON parse local storage get item professor. And now object retrieval. So this is all in the object retrieval. So clearing the text and starting to print. So my cat's name is parsed cat.name because it's the parsed cat object. And if statement, so if the gender is female, print she is. If it's male, he is. But since I'm hard coding it in as female, then that doesn't really, it's not really required, but just something I did. And an if statement, again, hard coded, but if it were licensed, a licensed, and if not, as it's not, and unlicensed. And printing age and breed, parsed cat, again, object, parsed cat.age, parsed cat.breed, And so that's what this is what it looks like. My cat's name is Professor McGonagall. She's an unlicensed 7-year-old tabby cat.
Should get her licensed.
Yeah, we don't let her outside ever. She's just an inside cat, and she would probably try to tug off a collar. She's not liking her claw caps. So, any questions on objects?
But that was the objects with local storage. That's great. You've done all that with the.
Yeah, good job. So, well, I guess I have a question. So I'm just thinking maybe out loud now. But so if you have a website and you wanted to use like local storage, would that save it on your end, or is this just talking about like your clients and like if your client would benefit from this, not you?
I think it's on your end, I believe.
It is. Going back to that website, the only way to clear it is to do a browser clear, the cache when you're clearing. So it's storing it on your machine.
Yeah.
In fact, you should be able to, if you wanted to, you should be able to close your browser session here and open it back up. And if you called specifically the gets, professor and string nums, they should still be there. That's the whole point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the cookies, the data you get and send back to the server. But this is stuff that's specific to your machine here.
Yeah.
That's the difference between session data and this local storage.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So the cookie is the one that gets you.
It is. Well, it's sent back to the server, right? So that's like when you're communicating back and forth and it knows stuff about you on the server. That's where the cookie is, right? Because the server can't write to local data, only the JavaScript. So on your browser side here, because that would be a huge security hole if so it does it through the cookie, right? And so the cookie, so the web page can request the cookie and then send that information to the server, and then the server knows. The local storage is just stuff that's stored locally.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, I guess my mind is like, how can I collect as much like data from the user, right? But this is, local and session is just.
You have to do it through the cookies. I mean, you have to. And that's why, so again, back to, if you notice most websites now, when you go to them the first time, they say, here's our cookie policy, please accept it, right? That's all because of the EU, the GDPR, right? The basically the protects consumer data. They have to tell you now what data that they are collecting on you in that cookie. That's what the whole cookie policies is, right? It says, and so that's as you as the user have the ability to accept it or not, and accept the fact that they are collecting that data on you. And if you also look, you can go out to like Apple now, or I don't know if Facebook's doing it, Google's doing it. You can go request all your data, all the data that they have on you.
No way.
Yeah, it's all part of GDPR, because the EU has said, look, data privacy is important to us. And since all these websites don't want to have to try to distinguish between EU citizens and non, they're just doing it globally. But yeah, you can actually go out to Apple now and Google and several of these places and say, show me all the data you have, and they'll give it to you.
Oh my gosh, it's almost like smushing a spider, like you don't want to look.
I tell you another even scarier one. You can actually go out to Amazon and you can request your purchase history forever of everything you have ever bought on Amazon, and it will give it to you in an Excel sheet, including a total. And that's a scary number.
Oh no.
I do not want to see that. No way.
That's a bad one.
Seriously.
All right, so we good on local storage now?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Alec.
Yeah, well done.
Actually, very, very helpful. And actually, I think you answered a question like, for me, like Jessica had. I was dealing with the objects, and I made them global because I couldn't get them to stay outside of the function. And
Yep.
I could put them into local storage now, and then I could pull them back out the next time I wanted to use them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had to do that too for one of them. I can't remember now. It was last week. It was too long ago. Okay, so it's my turn for
Yep.
the let's see, for HTML. So here I will perhaps, let's see. I want you, so that way we can kind of look at both. Okay, so it said etc. when it told us what to do. I kind of added in this, well, I added in, can you guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So for the DOM manipulation, so I've got the get element by ID. I'm guessing we probably all know how to do that, but I stuck it in here just in case we needed to have it in here. But for getting elements by the tag and class name, I have never really done that. I usually just work with the IDs. So this was interesting. I thought it's not quite, I don't know, it's not quite the same as getting it by ID. It returns for the tags, it returns a node class. So that's this section right here. So I guess that doesn't matter. We need a JavaScript. Okay. So for tags, it returns this list, and the like if I wanted all paragraph elements, I'd have to put in a capital P, and I can't remember why it has to be capital. I read it and I can't remember now, but the element tag has to be capitalized, and then you would need to. So this is my first one where it's just got one. So this is basically returning a node list of all of the P elements, and then I'm accessing the fourth index from that list, and then it will change just that fourth one. So like over here, I just am changing this right here is all that changed. So if you want to change all of the P elements, then you have to request a list and then just do it in a loop, and then it will change all of the, I don't know why you would ever want to do that, but then it would change every P element on your web page. Same with class names are handled very similarly. I don't know, I can't say that word, but the same. How about that? Same thing where you have to access like by an index if you want to just affect one, or you can do it in a loop. So like this just affected that, but when you change the whole class, so everything that had that class name changed, but you have to put the class name in all of it. So it's kind of annoying in each element. And one thing I learned while doing this and trying to figure it out, and I couldn't figure out what wasn't working, but I had my, the div that this is all sitting in was originally, was called class change 2. And so every time I would refresh, I figured this out, the whole thing goes away because you've now changed the inner HTML of that div to whatever you're saying. And so any element you had in there, whether it had the class name or not, is now gone. So if I would not name the div the same class as anything that's inside of it if you plan on ever getting an element or changing an HTML by the class. The other thing you can do with those, you can put them together. You can, let's see. So in this, in this one, combine queries. I have too many things open here. So this is one where you got the element by the ID. So I'm looking for the combined element and then getting all of the P elements and going through the list. So that changed all of the P's in this element here. You can also use it to count. I don't know why you would ever need to do this, but if you ever wanted to count how many of a certain element you had, you can do that. So I have 5 of the P elements in this section. I don't know why you'd ever need to do that, but there it is. So if you want to do creating or appending, which these are the things that were for sure on that list. Here, oops, it's removing, creating and appending. So okay, so to create an element, again, you use capital letters for the element tag. So you first would create the element, document.create element, and then whatever kind of element you're creating. And then if you're going to have text in it, you first have to create a text node like this, and then put in here, you put whatever you want in that text. So I'm making this list for things I have to do. So I have laundry. Then you append this text node description, you append that to the element you just made. So now you have this item that has the word laundry in it. And then you take that and append it to whatever element is you're putting the new element into. So so here I have this list of errands I have to do, and then when I click add item, it will add laundry to the bottom because I added it to this UL. But for the same kind of idea, if you wanted to insert it into a certain spot, I have right here, so I created the same thing. This is all the same element and text node. But if you want to work within it, you have to first get the list into JavaScript to work with it. So this is just calling the list, and now I have it stored right here. And then you use this insert before command, put the item that you're adding, and then the list, child nodes, and then it puts it in this spot. So when I click it now, it inserts it up here instead of down at the bottom. And then to remove elements, that is here we go. So this was the first one that I did. Okay, this one I had to work with this whole first child thing. I realized, so I don't know how much you guys had used the first child, last child stuff. I did a long time ago, but hadn't in a while. And so I learned something with them in just a second. So, okay, for removing. So here I have this, and if I'm just going to be working from like the top down, like I want it to remove the top element in this list. I passed it a 1 just so I could have something to differentiate it here. So then it's going to remove the top one, but I have to say first element child. So I was first just doing remove first child, and I kept having to click the button twice to make it work. Because when it pulls in this list, it'll pull in any empty spaces, and it seems to put them in between the list and stuff like that. And so every time I wanted to remove the top one, it would work, but I had to click it twice. So when I did first element child, it just looks for the first actual element, not for the first thing in this list, and then deletes it. So here it deleted that, it said homework, and it deleted the top one. It's the exact same thing with the bottom. You just do last element child, and it would remove from the bottom here. But if you wanted to remove a specific element, I mean, so I did this so that, you know, the user could put it in. So like if I wanted to remove the third one, so it would bring that number in to JavaScript, and then we get the list, but we get the children of it. So you have this dot children. I subtracted 1 because of the whole index thing starting at 0. Then I created this variable and assigned it the specific item on that list that I wanted to delete, and then you just say remove. If I wanted to hard code it in, you could obviously just hard code that number, but I could not figure out a way to have any sort of variables with this remove child, this way to do it. So if you were hard coding something, and you could, but I figure for the most part, for when we're removing stuff, it's probably not hard coded, or it could be a variable type of situation. So this is how you do it in a variable situation. You just assign that specific one and remove it. So if I said I wanted to remove the third one, I hit remove item, and that third one disappeared. And that is DOM manipulation. There was a bunch that had to do with CSS, but it looks like that's a different subject that we're supposed to be
that's next
working
week
on later. Yeah, so I didn't.
You can do
touch
that,
any of that.
and then I won't have to.
I'll let you do that.
Yeah.
Hey, will you go back to your code for a second?
Yes.
To the insert.
To the insert. Yes. Okay.
Because it's just that one function, insert, right there, right?
Insert before. Yes. This one is.
No, I meant your whole function called insert.
Yes, this is just. Yeah, just one function to insert it, you mean?
Yeah, where is to do to coming from?
Oh, that is my ID. I'm getting it by the element ID. So
No, I see that. Wait a second. I see that. Go back down to your code. I see, but you call your variable to do. And then the next line, you have a item and to do to there.
Yes. So this is my variable.
Yep.
And I'm going to insert it before, put in my item, but then you have to put the actual list's name in here, the ID name, and then access. It really seemed very convoluted. Like there should be an easier way to do all of this.
Okay.
Yes. So you put the variable here, but then the ID there in this section of it.
Saying that.
No, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I didn't know what that was either. That's the ID. That's not like.
Yeah, I don't see where you defined that variable called to do to.
Yeah.
And I did see that it was your item name, and I thought, but no, I get it now. Okay.
Yeah. And I messed that up at one point and did not put the 2 in there. And you definitely have to put the element ID name, or it just won't do anything.
Okay, that's good to know.
So, any other questions?
No, good job. That looks really good.
Yeah.
And
I noticed you have all sorts of CSS styling in yours too. Black and white.
I have a hard time. It would take a lot less time, but I have a really hard time not just making it pretty. So I just do it. I mean, I have the same like color scheme and everything for all of them, so it's gotten to the point where it's pretty simple. But yeah, also probably.
And you said you're doing was it web design?
Yes. Yeah, web design development. Yeah. I guess it does make sense.
Yeah. Well, great. I think that about wraps it up.
Yes. And next week are we doing 3? I can't remember. Are we doing 3 every week or just?
We have 2 next week. 2. We have
okay.
2 from here because I have it here in front of me. We've got 2 for week 5, 2 for week 6, only 1 for week 7, 8, and 9.
Okay.
So the first 2 weeks we did 3 each to get through these, and then we switched down to 2, and then 2, and then 1, 1, 1.
Okay, that's right, because those last 3 we figured might need some time. Awesome.
Okay. Well, great. Awesome, guys. Same time next week.
Yep.
Works
Sounds
for me.
good.
Same bat channel, same bat time.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Have a good one, everybody.
See you guys.